everyone, welcome to the Aussie Game Podcast. My name is Chief. I'm joined as always by Mopper. How are you today, my friend?
Fantastic, Chief. Had a big week again. Lots of Australian football news. There's plenty happening as always, as we always say. And it didn't disappoint again this week with some big announcements made by Football Australia, some big transfers and definitely some rumours. And obviously we've got lots to talk about with the Matildas and the Matildas under 20s.
Absolutely, mate. Let's kick it off. As you mentioned, big announcement by Football Australia on Thursday. Just going to read the statement as it reads on their website. So, CommBank and Football Australia today announced a groundbreaking investment in the world game and Australia's most played team sport for the next 6 years. With this agreement, CommBank will become Football Australia's major sponsor at all levels. In addition to the existing sponsorship of the CommBank Matildas, the 2024 Women's World Cup champions, the Para Matildas and the Pararoos, CommBank will become the naming rights partner of the Socceroos and the Emerging Matildas and Emerging Socceroos championships. So the deal's set to start from the 1st of September, and it includes a host of things for CommBank in their association with Football Australia. I'll go to you first, Mopper, before I have my say, but what did you make of the deal first and foremost?
Well, let's look at the positives. It's an injection of cash and a much needed injection for Football Australia. If we look at Commonwealth Bank themselves, they're a reputable and huge business, which could offer a lot of streamlines for Australian football in regards to managing their financial advice, investment. I think from that, they offer a lot of strategy that we could learn off. The deal itself, around the $60 million over the 6 years, well, that can be challenged from a value point of view. We could probably see some positives and we can see some opportunities if we were looking at the financial acronym across the sporting global and national game that we've got. I think Commonwealth Bank, as you said, have been with the Matildas for 4 years. That gives us another 6 years. So that's 10 years. So stability. And I liked your point last week in regards to that's our whole football structure there. As you announced all those teams, it brings the brand and the band of Commonwealth Bank together, which I think is a very good strong point. And it gets down to all the teams at all different levels. So that's the positive and the strong points for me, what Commonwealth Bank and Football Australia is. What are your early thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think, look, as you said, we will talk about the finances themselves, but it's a really positive message. They use the caption of Football United. So to go across the men's and the women's programs, obviously into some of the other aspects of Australian football as well, but all the feed down all the way into some of their mini Roos programs as well. So it's a great synergy, as you said, to connect all all parts of the game. The APL did that a few years back in terms of connecting the A-League men's and the A-League women's, breaking away from that kind of W League message just to try and band together. So we've got history in terms of what we do in that space as well. It's certainly the positive step forward in that aspect.
Very smart deal for the Commonwealth Bank. We've got the most participated game in Australia. So from a numbers point of view, a no-brainer. And also, too, we're already in the World Cup for the Socceroos. So again, exposure and global for the Commonwealth Bank. It's just an absolute gold return for them, I think. And from an astute business, I think they're bang on the money for obviously awareness and clearly for their brand. They've tied in well. So we're talking Australia Socceroos. We talked about the World Cup. We're talking about Matildas. Obviously, Asia Cup next year in Australia. So I think from when you look at the sponsorship deal, I think we've fallen short in that area. I think our global demand is much more. And I think our brand value offers an international, obviously global network. So I think we've sold ourselves a little bit short on that one. I'd be pushing a bigger deal. I would have thought that the Matildas would have been worth 60 million over 10 years, over the 6 years. Sorry, if you look at the Matildas numbers, we're looking at the World Cup semi-final, the greatest ever watched game in Australian sports history. Number one. Number two is Kathy Freeman, winning gold 400 2000 Sydney Olympics. So there you go about the global audience and Australian audience, just huge numbers. I really think we could have pushed that a little bit harder. Now, we don't have the breakdown of the contracts and the deals, and it's not to say this is a negative on Australian football. They're trying to get the best outcome for Australian football. I get it, and I'm all for that. And obviously, I'm not critical of Commonwealth Bank either, because they're putting their money where their mouth is and they're supporting the Australian football, which is desperately needed, especially at the younger levels, to give them the support and the obviously the facilities and the game time and the venues, so we can warm up to these Asia Cup, World Cup events and qualify and have a good camp. So it's just an opinion, and I'm not being critical. I'm just voicing an opinion. I think what the value's worth. That when you look at it, we're on the world stage. We're in the biggest game of the global market, and you look at the finances, what are happening, and all the money and revenue with sponsorship. I really think economically we've got to push a harder deal. And whether that's, and I'm sure there's more sponsorships out there that they're working on, but I really think our brand value, I just don't want to lower the bar. I want to raise it more, because I know how important sponsorship is, and I know how important that reinvestment back is. And the more we get, obviously, the more we grow our game, and the more everybody gets the reward. So who else, like you said, gets up at 3 a.m. and watches? Who else gets that viewer of, we rate the highest watched game in Australian sporting history? So again, it's just a point of view, but I think it's an important point. I think that sponsorship deal has been undervalued, but I get and respect Commonwealth Bank and Football Australia, what they're trying to do with the deal. And I'm not being negative. I just think that our game should be respected and drive a harder bargain is what I'm trying to get, because I believe the deal probably could have been worth double. And especially, like I said, with the Matildas, you're talking about people, sold out stadiums everywhere we go, viewership, it's on a record rise. And wow, that money could be, well used. Would love to hear people's opinions on the value for money, but I just want to state once again, it's very important. I respect Commonwealth Bank for putting their money where their mouth is. They're a reputable business and has done extremely well. And Football Australia have found a very strong foundation within the Commonwealth Bank and very strong sponsor. I just hope there's more financial structure to it, where there's either reward or financial benefits where Australian football can get from Commonwealth Bank that will help them short and long term.
I told you we had a bit to say about it, listeners, didn't I? So thanks, thanks, Moffat. No, very well researched, and did all your bits and pieces there. So the other thing is the FIFA World Cup having the restrictions around how much access individual sponsors of the national teams can play into that as well. I certainly agree with you in terms of what we potentially could have got out of it when you do look at the brand value of the Matildas. I suppose my thought there is, we see all the time when we talk about player transfers and the fees and things like that, you need a bidding war. You need this kind of to and fro, and how many others were in the mix. Because if there was, another two or three big brands in the mix, that just drives up that value. If CommBank was, one of the only ones, then it's just working out the kind of bits and pieces of the deal. So again, that we don't know the ins and outs of how the deal was put together and those conversations, but that was my thought around that. Well, if we did have several other big businesses bidding for those naming rights, then we could have potentially driven up that price. The naming rights is the big one. So the national teams will be known as the CommBank Matildas and the CommBank Socceroos, as will all these underage teams and everything else they're affiliated with as well. So in terms of brand value, CommBank getting their name out there, they obviously compete with other big banks as well. So that's a huge connection to a beloved Australian brand in the Socceroos and the Matildas as well. So I think in terms of Football Australia, and if the money does kind of trickle down all the way, which we hope it does, and it's obviously going to go to Football Australia, and they will determine the best way to spend this money as well. But if we can get some kind of compensation for our registrations or our participation and get more people involved in the game, make it easier for people to access the game that maybe aren't fortunate enough to. I think that's a really important point, getting this money in, that it's incredibly important that Football Australia spend it well.
All right. So where do we see Football Australia spending the revenue? Where's it needed? Where would you spend it? I'll put that question to you.
Well, I would go down to the grassroots. The money, when you talk about that 60 mil, and there's often been a point about building a home for the Socceroos. I mean, this type of money isn't going to do much in terms of creating that. I think we really need other support in terms of that. So that's one thing that has been called for in the past. I think it will be fantastic, but this money spread across 6 years just isn't going to do that. So I think with the type of money we're talking about, I would go down into grassroots and the accessibility. We often talk about, and with the growth of the women's game and more participation from females, things like change rooms and things like facilities. The more we know that there was a massive influx after the Women's World Cup, not just from young girls, but from many older girls as well to get into the game. So, and I don't think we were ready to deal with that as well. So potentially that's an opportunity to provide some kind of grants for clubs to apply for that can be then distributed through that. I think it's almost like a groundswell. We've spoken about this before, about the love of the Matildas, and it does extend to the Socceroos as well. It's probably more so around these World Cup moments, as you said. A Federation Square packed out at 3 a.m. in the morning. That just doesn't happen in other sport. No other sport has the same pull like that. So the more people we can get invested in that lower level, the more we can get them involved in coming to the Socceroos and Matildas games, and in the end, that's going to drive everything, because we get sold out Matildas games, we get sold out or really high attendance at Socceroos games. CommBank is going to turn around and look at that value and go, geez, look at how much awareness our brand is getting on the back of what we've invested into it. So yeah, for me, in summary, I would put it down into the grassroots and the development to try and get more people involved in the game, and the ones that have jumped on board, making them feel more and more comfortable within the game. What about you, mate?
Oh, I think strategy-wise, I think Football Australia has raised the games that the junior teams are playing. That comes at a cost, but we always demand that we want more at that level, so our younger Australian teams are playing at a higher level earlier on, so we don't have that gap when we get to the senior level. So I think they'll continue on that path. It's been very successful in the last 12 months. You've seen that with the rise of some of the younger teams, especially the 20s being a highlight. I know we speak a lot about them, but they're probably the little blueprint there. If we can continue those providing the facilities and camps to succeed, I think it's much needed. You've got the Matildas under 20s we'll talk about in a minute. They need more games as well from the women's games. So the more we invest in that, I think that's a no-brainer. I think I love your point around Football Australia or Socceroos, Matildas and juniors need a home. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to look at that.
Well,
I
the
they've got
Matildas do have a home in Melbourne, so
Is it something else that gains revenue though from, or is it just that's their camp? Because I really think Football Australia needs to, if we're looking at a football academy, like I know that's a bit of a stretch, but I really think something that generates money back also can be multi-used, that can gain and resource funds and be sustainable, that is a home still for when we are at home. And I know, yep, you rightly so pointed out the Matilda's got a base in Melbourne, but I really think for our younger teams and state teams, is this something that we need to explore? Like, if you look at overseas in the football academies that are around, second to none facilities, but also can be utilised for all the way down the grassroots. And tacking onto your point around the grassroots, could get money back that financially makes it sustainable itself or profitable to continue to reinvest. I'm a big fan of putting football academies in. I know there are academies in each state, but they borrow each ground, or they whatever the arrangement is, whether it's leasing or whatever, who owns what. But I think if Football Australia invested in something like this, and again, it'd be challenging, obviously, because of the distance and who gets what, obviously. But I think it's something we can build on sustainability wise. If we look at that, that would be a wish. Whether they got the financial muscle to go buy a property and invest in that for that would be, is that probably a longer term game or aim for the Football Australia? But I'd love to see it. But I think with the money, once it's broken down and then investment at that national level all the way down, that would take up a lot of that finance. And you're right. I think, I don't know. I really believe if we need to look a bit further, be a bit more visionary and innovation with these academies. And maybe if we can build one, we can build another and build on that. Like, again, we need assets. Like, if you look at the other codes, they've got assets and they're sustainable models and they are making profit. So if we're going to do something and invest in that, then I think it's the right long-term strategy. It's just a challenge with, can we get into that space and be brave enough to? I just, that's why we need the visionaries to really look at that. Like, I want something that's ours, that we can sustainably grow the communities within it. And I'm a visionary. I see like 10, 15 years in advance. If we had an academy in each state, why not look at that? Because realistically, everywhere else has got it in Europe and that and America and all that anyway. So I think it'll close the gap, and I really think it'll help develop and send everyone to this space. You hear about all the travel and all that all the time about where kids have to go to try to get to these elite clubs. Then, try to create something that's central and has like accommodation there and all that kind of things that you can work off. Like, that's assets that will provide profit and sustainability.
Here's an idea, mate, and it's just come to me. But we spoke about the CommBank deal uniting football. What about, instead of a home of the Matildas or a home of the Socceroos, it's a home of football?
Yeah, 100%.
It's something that, despite what level you're at, what gender, it doesn't matter. This is your place to come train, develop, work on your technique, all these kinds of things. Like, how often are the Socceroos and the Matildas in the country at the same time? Like, barely ever, right? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah,
And
maybe.
it has an international, it can bring international clubs, players development in. Isn't, you see that with our guys, like with and girls, they're going overseas to these academies in Japan. We're paying for these trips for them to go over. They've got dorms, accommodation, facilities, and they're making profit off it.
Yeah.
Like, why can't it work in the reverse as well? And not only that, broaden your mind to other sports that we can attract, that they pay us for our facilities. That's what I'm talking about with assets. That's the sustainable model. But I think that's what the positive that they can look at. And I think it'll grow our game even more rapid if we can start looking at that, because we've got to start having our own things. We can't just keep borrowing football stadiums or borrowing facilities or paying for facilities. We've got to have our own to be able to reinvest. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And we've got to start somewhere, right? Like, even if it's small, we've got to
Yeah.
start somewhere and make it happen. So look, it's a great discussion, and as Mopper said, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit us up on socials. We're on Instagram, we're on BlueSky as well. So yeah, on Facebook as well. So find your preferred platform, drop us a note, let us know what you think of the deal itself and how the money should be spent. So we do have a lot to talk about. So we're going to park that one for now, and we're going to move on to a bit of transfer activity. This one came through just after we recorded last week. So Cameron Burgess moving from Ipswich Town to Swansea. I had a look at Burgess's playing time or playing matches in the past couple of seasons for Ipswich. So obviously they were in the Premier League last season, 22 matches he played all in all. He probably had a good spell at the start, not so much in the middle, and then came home with some games under his belt as well. The season before, he had 40 games in the championship with Ipswich. I think there was a few cup appearances in that one as well, I should say, and then 38 before that when they were in League One. So certainly his matches dried up in his time in the Premier League. So I think Swansea's probably a good level and a good fit for Burgess for where he's at in his career. And obviously coming into a World Cup year, he's going to want to be playing regular football as well. So Swansea actually have a new manager, 38-year-old Alan Sheehan. He came in late in the piece last season in a caretaker role, did pretty well with them, and he's been given a 3-year deal. So yeah, Burgess is going to come in there with a few changes. He's also changed some of the backroom stuff as well. So a bit of a fresh start for the club as well as Burgess. What did you make of the Burgess deal, mate? And do you think it's a good deal, a good club for him to move to?
Great move. I think championships is probably where his standard's at. Swansea 11th, 61 points last year, only 5 points off Blackburn at 7th. Very stable club. Will get game time. If he got 40 games in the championship previously, he's going to, we all know that the championship, 46 games plus cups. So we're looking at a 60-game probably season for Swansea. I just think fantastic move. Nice middle range club, leaked a few goals last year, but I think he'll be a nice addition, and it'd be challenging for starting. And I think Cameron Burgess, hats off to you. I think this is the right move. You hit it on the head 12 months before the World Cup, spot on. And I think he's going to have a really good year.
Yeah, and I remember looking at the championship table with you quite late in the season, and it was almost at a point there where every club could either get into the playoffs or get relegated. So it's such a tough, tight league. It only takes those few. If Burgess keeps a clean sheet here or there, all of a sudden Swansea's fortunes are turned and they're into the playoffs, and he might be looking at a return to the Premier League following the World Cup. So yeah, I thought that was a positive move for him. Obviously, Ipswich are dropping down to the championship anyway, but he's been at Ipswich for a while, so probably a fresh start for him will do him well. One of our other Aussies heading to the championship as well, Adrian Segicic, obviously on the books of Sydney FC. So he's gone to Portsmouth. Segicic was the Golden Boot winner in the A-League along with Archie Goodwin in the season just gone. He was used primarily as a sub for Sydney FC under Ufuk Talay and almost gained that tag of becoming a super sub, that impact player. In Sydney FC, they had a statement on their website that said Sydney FC will also receive a substantial 6-figure fee in training compensation for the talented Ollie Roos and young Socceroos midfielder. So he was off contract at the end of June, so no transfer fee, but they did get some kind of compensation. What do you think of Segicic going to the championship with Portsmouth?
Another smart move. Portsmouth are deliberately looking at young talent. They've got a very strict wage structure in place, and they are looking for youth. You've seen that with Yengi. You've seen that with other Australians that joined the club last year. If we look at his Australian career, he's played 5 games for under 17s, 7 games for the under 20s, and 7 games for under 23. So you've already got someone who's capped 19 times at junior level. 44 appearances for Sydney, 14 goals, and he was out on loan in 23-24 at Dordich for 27 appearances, 5 goals. Great stepping stone. I like the fact he's chosen Portsmouth. I think he'll get plenty of opportunity at a right age too, and I just think this is another good move for players picking the right club. Definitely with Portsmouth's strategy. So I think, again, we're going to see opportunity, and that's what we want. Could he put 12 months together and push for those claims if he breaks in there, absolutely. We know how tough the championship is. Wow, there's some big clubs in there, yeah. So I think another great move for another young Australian. Disappointed Sydney FC couldn't get a fee, but again, compensation fee. Is it enough? Oh, geez, it frustrates me when we let players go and only get a training compensation fee for a young talent here. We've, like I said, capped 19 times at junior level, just waiting to break through. It breaks my heart. But again, compensation fee. They don't lose out altogether, so they get a little bit of a prize. But again, a good start. I think Portsmouth, right move.
I mean, we do see that everywhere in world football. I mean, your club, Liverpool, let Trent Alexander-Arnold's contract run down and get nothing for him, right? Or next to nothing anyway. So, look, it happens in what we'd obviously like A-League clubs to get our young talent on longer term contracts, as we spoke about last week. And when they
I'd like to say Real Madrid paid $5 million for him, like for 2 weeks.
you
For
got
2
something,
weeks, so
you got
5
something.
million. Hey, 20 years. How many trophies? Yeah. No, good luck to him. He can speak Spanish, so all the best, Arnold. I'm very grateful for the time he and what he gave Liverpool, especially as a junior. So
I can tell you're not
it's
bitter.
not about him, is it? It's not about him.
You're not bitter at all. Um, Oh, look, yeah, as I said, we'd loved our A-League clubs to get them on long-term deals, so when they do go, that there is that significant compensation. So, I mean, they did say substantial six-figure fee, so uh, who knows? Who knows? But obviously, Segic does join Hayden Matthews, Jacob Farrell, and Thomas Waddingham at Portsmouth. So that will definitely help him settle in. He's a former teammate of Hayden Matthews at Sydney FC. I've already seen the picture on Instagram of him and Matthews reuniting. So yeah, that will certainly help him settle in at Portsmouth. And just on Matthews and also Jacob Farrell, they obviously had some injuries late toward the end of the season. Farrell only played one game. Matthews played six, I believe, but they'll both be back from injury and part of the preseason preparation. So that's exciting for them. And who knows? You might see all four Aussies starting for Portsmouth sooner rather than later.
I'd love that. Go the boys. They're in for a great year. There's some exciting talent over there, isn't it? And Portsmouth. Well done again. Low cost strategy to pinch some Australian talent. They've definitely got their eyes on us, haven't they? So
Their manager loves the A-League. He was even quoted as saying as much during the week. He loves it. So don't be surprised if if you're the fifth or a sixth lineup at Portsmouth in due time. So keep your eye on that one.
16th last year, Portsmouth, 54 points. Still not that far off, the top seven. So only 4 wins away, but then 16th overall. So you can see how close that bottom was down there with, Derby, Preston, Hull City. Hull City got relegated on 49 points. So, yeah, it just goes to show that league again. So good luck with the boys. Big year for Pompey. We'll definitely be following them very closely this year.
Absolutely. Yeah, and a third Aussie going to the championship. So Jalen Pearman from Perth Glory, he's joining QPR. So that deal seems like it's been done for a while, or maybe like a pre-contract. But there's certainly that's been in the works for a while. But seems to have been made official this week. Obviously, Pearman was part of that under 20 Asian Cup team, and he also joins his fellow teammate in that Asian Cup team in Daniel Benny over at QPR. So I looked at that and thought, well, Benny got a fair. Well, he's certainly on the bench majority of the time and got some minutes here and there off the bench. So if Pearman can go over there next season and do similar to what Benny did, and we do hope that obviously Benny kicks on and gets a few starts here and there and continues to develop. I think he's still 18, Benny. He's certainly very young anyway. But and look, I might have just turned 19, sorry, Benny. But yeah, Pearman joining another Aussie in the championship. It will help him settle. Benny was from Perth Glory as well. I'm not sure if they cross paths, but yeah, good move for another Aussie, and let's hope he gets some game time over there too.
Yeah, Luongo's old club, and obviously they don't have a coach at the moment. They've been linked with a couple, Julian Stephen, hopefully probably should become their new manager, former Rennes coach. obviously QPR's coach went to West Brom, I believe, during the off season. So they've signed him through pure scouting and pure direct in football without a coach. So clearly some eyes on him early on. So again, QPR, same situation, pretty middle table when it comes to wages, low wage structure, looking for bargains. And I think they've got another one here. If Benny got time last year, then Pearman's, I think, going to have the same opportunities. Again, with QPR, they finished slightly higher, just above Portsmouth on 56 points. So fairly stable, but again, not too far off bottom. So they're going to have some challenges there on both sides.
Yeah, look, it doesn't, as we've said it a couple of times now, but that championship is so tight, and it doesn't take much to go on a little run and jump up the table, but you can also go the other way as well. So let's hope that all of our Aussies in the championship next year, and there's obviously some others there that are already there in McGree and Glover. So yeah, it's a good stepping stone for a lot of them, and particularly the young ones who just need an opportunity sometimes, and who knows what might happen. All right, there's a few more transfers to go through. These ones are local ones, so players either moving around in the A League or coming back to the A League. So Callum Talbot has gone from Melbourne City to Macarthur. Costa Barbarouses has gone from Wellington Phoenix to the Wanderers. Another City boy, Harry Politides, has gone from City to the Bulls. And another, the City app must be having a massive clean out after the A-League Championship win. But Steven Ugarkovic from City to the Wanderers, he has played there before. So it's a bit of a reunite for Ugarkovic in the Wanderers colours. Harry Shillington, Melbourne City, he has stayed. He's extended his deal by another season at Melbourne City. Keegan Jelicic, he did play at Brisbane Roar last year, but he was on the books of KAA Ghent on loan at Brisbane. He's gone to Melbourne Victory. I actually saw a bit of him live at Unite Round this year. He was pretty impressive, I thought. So I think Victory's got a good one there. They're obviously looking to replace a few that they've let go as well. But hopefully he kicks on. He's shown a bit of promise in the past. So let's hope that one works out for him. And Louis Dorigo, his was in Lechia Gdansk and he's come back to Victory. So he only played 12 games last season, one start, 191 minutes. So I think it's a good time for him to come back and reset at 23 years old. And as I said, Victory looking to top up those attacking options with some of the players that they've already lost or potentially going to lose in the off season.
Also, too, Chief, Brisbane Roar eyeing off former Adelaide defender Giuseppe Vivallani, who was
Bovalina, yeah.
went overseas. Brisbane Roar trying to eye off him as well. So, and obviously on the female side, Ellie Carpenter, one step closer to signing with Chelsea today. So,
Yeah,
very
I saw that
close.
one before.
Yeah, very close to signing that deal.
Yeah, Bovalina, he has been getting a few look-ins at Vancouver. So, but yeah, interesting for him to potentially come back. There's some other rumors going around. Noah Bodic has apparently been linked to about 16 clubs. He's finished his time at Western United, but doesn't seem to have any shortage of options for himself. So, it'd be very interesting to see where he lands. He was pretty impressive this season. So, his next move is probably an important one. And the other rumor I saw was Ryan Teague linked to Wrexham. So wonder if we're going to see him rubbing shoulders with the big Hollywood stars in the Welcome to Wrexham documentary. That would be certainly an interesting one. But yeah, that seems to be a pretty strong rumor. So I don't know about that one. So we'll see.
Well, yeah, definitely get some exposure there.
He certainly will get his
But back
his
on
votes out
Bodic,
there.
he's definitely linked with a lot of European clubs, Bundesliga and the Championship. So very interesting days ahead. We'll keep close on that one.
All right, let's move on to. There's a bit of news out of the J League with our Aussie managers. Let's start with Patrick Kisnormo. He parted ways with Yokohama F Marinos during the week. The statement read from Kisnormo read, due to personal reasons, the club and I have mutually agreed that it is in the best interest of all parties, my family, the club, the fans, the staff, and the players, that I part ways with the Yokohama F Marinos. We have worked together to ensure this transition is handled smoothly and amicably. So I want to say first and foremost that I hope everything is good with Patrick Kisnormo. I hope he did go on a bad spell of games there at Yokohama F Marinos, but yeah, hopefully everything is okay in his personal life, and there's nothing too serious going on. But he did come in there and take over as caretaker after Steve Holland was there for the start of the season, but he didn't have a great run of games, and whether he was going to be sacked and he's just kind of stepped down, or they've kind of mutually agreed, as the statement has said. I'm not sure, but yeah, it seems to have not worked out for him over there.
Yeah, bit sad news, but obviously that's the business we're in, isn't it? Like, I think he was in the quarterfinals of the Asian Champions League not long ago, and then bang, just off to a poor start. So whatever's happened there, it's obviously been disappointing, and the club obviously looking to move forward. So unfortunately, another failed stint for Kisnorbo. Whether it's the right club or balance, will that'll be soon to be told. But he's definitely found his niche in the A League, so I'm sure jobs won't be too far off someone as experienced as Kisnorbo. But we wish
Yeah,
him
look,
well, finding a new club and still coaching and doing what he loves.
yeah, he has done well in the A League, as you said, with Melbourne City, and his short stint with Melbourne Victory. I'm sure Victory fans wouldn't have minded him staying a bit longer, but yeah, it certainly didn't work out in France with Troyes, and hasn't worked out with Marinos here. So we'll see where Kiz Norbo lands next. In more positive news, our other Aussie coach over there in the J League, Arthur Pappas, he was named the J League Manager of the Month for May. So his side, Cerezo Osaka, won 4, drew 1, and lost 1 in May. So certainly punching above their weight, his club. And yeah, huge congratulations to Arthur Pappas for that award.
Yeah, what a great story. Work with Ange in the successful 2020 Yokohama Marinos side, obviously when they won the league. Doug Oakley Canyons had to spell Australia under 17s. He's been to a few clubs, back to Oakley again, a few local clubs, Newcastle Jets as well. And then bang, found this position. Well done for testing himself over there in J League. I think it's a great standard to test yourself against. And credit for getting that recognition. That's what we love to see. So good luck for the rest of the year for Arthur, and fantastic. I think it is for Australian football. Again, we've got coaches over there leading the way.
Brilliant, mate. Are you ready to talk some Tillies?
Yes, lots happening in that space with the Matildas and the 20s.
All right, let's kick it off. So Joe Montemurro has named his 33-player squad for upcoming games against Slovenia and Panama. He named that on Friday afternoon. So some in the squad are only going to play against the two games against Slovenia. Some are going to play the two games against Panama, and some going to play both. We had a great question on Instagram, and please share your thoughts and your questions. We love our listeners to have the interaction with us as well. So please, anything you want us to discuss, bring it forward, and we'd love to talk about it. But our question on Instagram was, what are your thoughts on the new Matilda squad? What do you think Joe Montemurro has in store for the squad? And I had my thoughts on it, but Montemurro's basically covered it in some of his quotes from his press conference. So I'll just read a few of them out. So we've got the time to sort of integrate stuff, but more importantly, to have a look at a number of plays in situations. When you have this amount of time, you can start to integrate some good ideas also and make a statement in terms of the way we want to play. I have my ways, and stubborn is probably a good word to use. But the reality is that once we can find a football direction where everyone has the ability to believe in the way we want to play, but also give them the freedom to be the best they can be, I think we'll get everyone on board. One of the messages is going to be able to control the ball. It's part of who I am. So that's where the stubbornness comes from. We will look at it at a team, and that will put the ball a little bit more, but also understand when it does have to defend in certain areas and certain scenarios. Whether it's defending a little bit deeper or defending a little bit higher, it can understand the moment. It's not so much about possession for possession's sake, but the just keeping the ball. It's identifying when the possession needs to be effective and when the possession needs to be prepared. I think we've got the players to do that. I think we've got the mentality to do that. So I think he's covered a lot of the answers to that great question that we had. What do you make of some of those statements that he's made in his press conference?
Professional. He's a world class. I think this has been the best move from women's football for a long time. Yeah, like we're getting someone like Joe. What a statement! And you've already seen the reaction of some senior players and some comments about him. And we've only just started this journey. We've got a real clear vision and plan here. It's a no brainer. His side. We said this previously that this is the perfect window to let the senior Australians have their break. They've obviously played in top professional leagues, and it's great to give them the break that they need because they're going to need to obviously go back to their own clubs and play, but also to, like he said in that statement, it's time to have a look. And Tom started that, and well done to Tom. He's done a fantastic job of going through that last period that we had in the last 12 months, and now it gives Joe an opportunity to build on that. So well done to Tom, and Joe just gets to have a look at who and what we've got. We did see the naming of the under-20 Matildas side with a few players that were named in camp and in the Matildas side from that. So again, we're looking at youth and we're looking at Australian football, and we've really widened the horizon with our team, and everyone's going to get a crack, yeah. And this will be perfect balance to go forward with and a great start, especially with these games. They're not like world class nations. They're teams that we can try to get our blueprint for without the experienced players. I think if they were higher nations, I think it'd be a struggle for Joe to try to get that blueprint started. So I think it's the right games at the right time and the right opposition to start with this. And again, with Tom's work, it just gives him a perfect platform, and a massive shout out to Football Australia getting someone of his ability in Europe, his knowledge, and wow, isn't this an absolute exciting time for the Matildas? This is going to be great. This is a great build up for the Asia Cup. So massive opportunity for the players that have come in, and they'll get a good camp, good games over in Perth and Western Australia, and a perfect platform. So hats off to everyone involved.
Yeah, two things stood out for me with those statements. One, the first thing was the stubbornness. It feels like it's going to be a really clear direction as to this is how we're going to play. This is how we want to play. No fluff. No. Oh, we could try this, could do this. It's a real intent to play the way and have a particular style. And the second one for me was it's not so much about possession, but for possession's sake. Almost got that one out. I think that provides a great balance between that kind of ticky tacky, keep the ball, and the kind of counter attack. So because I think we do need that balance in a lot of our kind of qualifiers, and when we play some of the lesser nations in Asia, we are going to dominate the ball. But when we do come up against some of the better ranked teams in women's football, we are going to need to potentially sit in and be patient with the ball. So I think we need the balance of styles, and I think in that he's kind of articulated that quite well for what we need.
Yeah, I we're on a winner here. I've got no doubt that we're primed for a big tournament next Asia Cup, mate. And the competition for places begins, and I think it'll only drive our football further.
Yeah, good call. All right, so let's have a look at some of the names for Joe's squad. We're not going to spend a lot of time on some of those mainstays in the Matildas squad, but he's selected 33 players, and we're just going to have a look at that compared to Tom Samani's last squad that he picked. So these are the outs. So Morgan Aquino, goalkeeper, out. Steph Catley is out, but she's just having a rest. She had an obviously big season with Arsenal. Leah Davidson and Izzy Gomez out as well. Caitlin Ford, similar to Steph Catley, just having a rest. And Carly Johnson, who was one of the scorers for the Matildas against Argentina, she is not in this squad either. And then on the ins, Mackenzie Arnold, Chloe Lincoln, and Sally James in for the keepers. Alexia Apostolakis. Now, she was originally named in the under 20s training squad, but obviously has been called into this camp. Ellie Carpenter, we all know and love Ellie Carpenter, and Jessica Nash comes in. Chloe Berry Hill, formerly Chloe Lagazo, for anyone who's not aware. Alex Chidiak comes in. Jacinta Galabadarachi. So, interestingly, she indicated in May 2023 that she was going to represent Argentina instead of Australia. So maybe one that we've snuck back in terms of who they would like to play for. And she's just left Sporting in Portugal, so I'm not sure where she's going to land, but that's an interesting one for me. Alana Murphy also comes in midfield, as does Adriana Taranto. And then the forwards, just to finish off, we've got Sian Fryer, Emily Gilnick, Grace Kulamu, who was also in that Young Matildas training camp, and then Hayley Razzo and Remy Simpson. So I'll let you pick that one apart, mate.
I think you've got a mix there. I'm really excited about Alexia Apostolakis. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Alexia Apostolakis, yeah.
Yeah.
Apostolakis. Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
So she's 19 years of age, Melbourne City, 25 games she's played for Melbourne City already at 19, capped 8 times for the under 20s. So that's exciting. Yeah, I've seen a tiny bit of her and I'm looking forward to that. I hope she gets some good game time. Another one I want to shout out, and I'm going to target some of the younger ones. Alana Murphy, 19 from the Victory in the Matildas squad. Obviously would have been named in the under 20 Matildas, but obviously already capped, for the Matildas. So Lana Murphy, some couple of promising players there from the younger brigade.
Yeah, we mentioned this last week as well about the importance of having that balance of experience. And I think that's probably where Montemurro is looking with bringing the likes of like an Emily Gilnick back, Chloe Berry Hill, Alex Chidiak, ones that have got that experience, have been around that Matilda squad a fair bit. And I think, with the likes of, a Caitlin Ford or a Steph Catley not or being rested for this squad, and also with the chopping and changing between the kind of the Panama games and the Slovenia games as well. Just having that experience and almost like vibes, I think, for someone like a Chidiak, I think she's a fantastic player. Don't want to kind of downplay that at all, but I think just that fun, excitement, that buzz, good person to have around that squad as well. So I think for a couple of those youngsters, it's good to have that experience around them. Just if it's going to be their first Matildas camp, just to kind of settle them in, so that Joe can have a really close look at them.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. As I said, it's the time to begin and time to impress, isn't it? So a good mix there too. Like I know we've let a lot of experienced players have a little break, but I still think there's enough top end talent to help them get through those first couple of games too.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And we have touched on the Young Matildas a bit. So they also announced their squad for a training camp that's going to be held. I think it starts tomorrow even, and it goes for about a week or so. So
23rd of June, my friend. You're spot on
yeah, so
for
that's
the
tomorrow.
2nd of July.
Yeah. So so these are in preparation for the Asian Cup qualifiers in August, which are in Tajikistan, and then the Asian Cup is going to be in April next year, and the Asian Cup doubles as the qualifier for the Under 20 World Cup, which is in Poland in 20 later in 2026. I think it's September, and so the top 4 teams for the Asian Cup. So obviously the semi-finalists will automatically qualify for that under 20 World Cup. So huge couple of months in preparation, and the importance of continually qualifying for these World Cups is so crucial for Australian football. So that squad was named. Indiana Dos Santos is a huge out. She's recently ruptured her ACL. So all the best with the recovery for Dos Santos, and fingers crossed that it all goes well and she can be fit and ready to go should the under 20s make the World Cup, which is in September next year. But just some notable inclusions into that squad. So I had Shelby McMahon, who, for anyone who was following the Melbourne City's Asian Women's Champions League campaign, last season. Shelby scored an absolute screamer in the semi-final from 25 yards and also scored in the final, which they unfortunately lost. But certainly a top prospect, Shelby McMahon. 17-year-old Isabella Hoyos. So she recently extended her deal with Brisbane Roar for 3 years, keeping her at the club until the end of the 27-28 season. So she played 7 times, including 3 starts for the Roar this season. So the Roar obviously hold her in really high regard. Daniela Galic played 5 times for the Matildas already and has played twice in the Eredivisie this year and 7 times in the Women's Champions League, scoring once. So her 20 team actually won the domestic treble this season. So good program, obviously, they've got going there, and Galich obviously contributed to that as well. And my last one is Talia Yunus. So she's the younger sister of Marcus Yunus, and she debuted in the A-League Women's at just 14 years old. So she's now 16. So there are a couple that I pulled out, but I know that you've got a couple as well, mate.
Yeah, no, you mentioned the pretty similar players. This is a crucial camp we've got here, 23rd June to 2nd July, as you stated. We've got to qualify. So if you look at obviously the under 20s don't have a ranking, but if you look at the senior side ranking of the teams that we're playing over in Tajikistan, so Tajikstan's at home but ranked 155 senior. We play Palestine, was ranked 134, and Chinese Taipei, which will be probably one of the harder games, are ranked 42 on the senior side. We've got to play 3 games in 5 days. We are in Group C, and we need to be the winner. There is obviously 3 best runner-ups that will advance to the Asia Cup in that tournament. So it's a massive tournament that we've got to succeed in. It's obviously the Asia Cup being in Thailand next year. It'll be a 12-team tournament, and like you said, the qualifying pathway is Poland in 2026. So massive events coming up here. I do want to say there's a lot of good news because a lot of these players are playing, and there's a lot of games and a lot of matches that they've played. You know, I've even got Tegan Bestoso, 18, Canberra United, already 36 matches for Canberra at 18 with 2 under 20 caps. The list goes on. Hoyas at Brisbane, 17, played 11 times for Brisbane Roar, captain under 17s. A lot of these players have been captain under 17s, but you did note that in the camp, but Alana Murphy, I would say, would join them in August for the under 20 campaign. And you already said I had one highlighted as well. Daniela Gaelic for Twent, absolute. I was surprised she's not in the Matildas side, to be honest, but, you know, a couple of the young girls are in the Matilda side and some aren't. So is it much of a difference playing their training camp? I think they'll both benefit at the same time as well. So a little bit challenging, but it's important. It has to be at the same time because we're playing in August for these qualifiers. So I tried to work out if the games are going to be live. I can't see whether you can stream them, but I can't see if there's any coverage. So hopefully we can find some coverage where we can follow the girls in August. But I think if I look at the coach too, he's been with Perth and he's definitely been in the youth setup around Australia. So he would have a good eye. And he does do New South Wales development as well. So he'll have a good eye. So obviously he's caught a lot of these players around the league and a couple from overseas. So exciting times for the 20s. Coming off last year where they at the 2024 World Cup, 3 matches for 3 losses, we didn't progress. So it just shows we've got a bit of development to try to get these players some like top series games. But hopefully the training camp will be a nice little bit of balance before the qualifiers.
Yeah, it's exciting times for this age group. And, we saw the under-17s in the World Cup last year, didn't make it out of their group, but, it's important for these underage teams to keep progressing and keep improving. We know that Matildas squad probably is going to need to be rejuvenated, whether it is after the Asian Cup or certainly after the World Cup. So it's important for these younger age players to keep coming through and keep performing on the international stage. So yeah, let's keep an eye on that training camp and see what comes of it. But certainly we've got an eye on August as well.
Definitely. Exciting times. Again, women's football, it's all happening, isn't it? Like, there's so much on. Start of a new era for the Matildas, and under 20s leading into some serious competitions. It's going to be fantastic. So lots to look forward to from women's football. As we know, it's such a growth game, and it's good to see us having a camp. It's crucial, isn't it? Like, it's so important. And this is what we said, where the finances go for to get them all together would be really difficult. Obviously, such a large space that we have in Australia to try to get everyone there. But a good time of year to do it. And yeah, good luck going forward in August. We'll stay very close to those 20s as they charge towards the qualifiers for the Asia Cup.
Long episode today. There was plenty to talk about, but really appreciate you spending your time with me this afternoon or this evening, talking all things Australian football.
Yeah, I'd love to hear the thoughts and opinions on any of the topics. I'd love to get some questions through, and definitely very interested in your thoughts on the sponsorship deal and the Matildas side and the other one transfers that we talked about. So, well, thank you for joining us, and appreciate your time.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Aussie Game podcast. We look forward to seeing you next time. But in the meantime, enjoy your football.